A very happy new year to all of you. I thought I would spend half an hour or so, maybe 45 minutes with you all going through the plans for this coming 12 months, so all of you are clear with where I'm up to. And of course, I would very much welcome all of you to continue this journey with me. From the outset, my position on everything to do with Oldham has been very clear. It is primarily, above all, to force a reckoning and demand justice for the children in this town who were groomed, gang raped, and then the crimes against them were covered up. When we started this journey, I knew, I'm just looking at the list, I knew one of you in my personal life. Most of you I had never met, and most of you had never heard of me. So when I started this journey, it was very clear. I was horrified by what had taken place, and having met with former councillors Warren Bates, first and foremost, and then Hughie MacDonald after him, I was horrified how these two elderly gentlemen would likely take to their graves an injustice that they were powerless to do anything about. And having spent a lifetime safeguarding children and young people, I could not look the other way to what was taking place, had taken place, and continues to take place in the place I consider to be home. I began a journey. It has aged me considerably, and it has taken me to places I am unfamiliar with. The back of a police cell, the back of a police car repeatedly, police van, locked up in a cage, repeatedly locked in a police cell for hours at end, and in the dock of courtrooms. We're 5 years into this journey, and what is very, very clear and proven now is that everything I initially claimed is true. Children in our town were groomed and gang raped. The authorities knew and kept it hidden from us. They also failed the children repeatedly and their families. Now, they claim it wasn't a cover-up. What I've just described to you is the very definition of a cover-up. And to this day, the authorities in this town, including the Greater Manchester Mayor Andy Burnham, refuse to tell us how many of our children were abused in this way. Or why? How? And why they failed them. I moved on, or it grew. I didn't move on, it grew from that, because linked to the CSE cover-up is clearly the council, Oldham Council. At the time, the leader of the council, Jim McMahon, now it's MP, Debbie Abrahams, who's also the MP, whose remit included Count Hill School, from which the school gates children were dragged away. No one said a word. And if they did, it was in such a way where we were led to believe, all the way up to Sean Fielding taking power, that it was barefaced lies. Well, we now know it isn't barefaced lies. And so this campaign, if that's the right word, grew to include trying to hold the council accountable, our democratically elected politicians, to fight for us, initially to fight for us, to demand justice. Instead of fighting for us, instead of demanding justice, it quickly became clear that they were neck deep involved in not just a CSE cover-up, but other issues in this town. I'll say issues for now. We found out, or we listed an itinerary of dubious decisions And then somewhere in that, we exposed that the deputy leader, who then became leader, ousted and became leader again, has a direct link with one of the most dangerous criminals in this country. She hangs off his arm. Of course, I'm referring to Dale Cregan's getaway driver, Irish Shimmy, convicted heroin dealer, getaway driver or cop killer. Her car was blown up, and Greater Manchester Police, who were already involved, became even more involved, and will not confirm if they have questioned the leader of Oldham Council, because the video leaked clearly demonstrated that this car had been left unlocked, and the criminals knew that the car was unlocked, and the criminals smashed the window after they'd opened the door. And of course, the car, when it was blown up, was not parked outside the council leader's house. These are matters of fact. And Greater Manchester Police, well over 2 years now, I don't think they wanted the video released. I don't think they knew about the video. Because if the video hadn't existed, I would be in prison and all of you labelled as far-right racists. In our quest, in our quest to clean up our town and deliver justice for the, and I'll say thousands of children, and I'll continue to say thousands of children until they specify a number, for the thousands of children that were groomed and gang raped. We started to support, nurture, develop, encourage opposition councillors, opposition politicians. Many of them didn't even know they were politicians at the time. And we got them elected. Contrary to what some of them may now claim, it's a direct consequence of what I did through this platform and how you mobilised around me that got these people elected. From Failsworth to Royton to Shaw, all of the independents who were elected owe it to us, even Aftab in St Mary's, whose leaflets I produced. We got a whole host of independents elected, and one after another, every one of them betrayed every one of you. They got elected off the back of demanding justice, this campaign demanding justice for the cover-up of the grooming and gang rape of our town's children, to challenge Shah and the corruption that infests Oldham Council. And instead, they got in bed with them. And the only ones, and I say this as a former Labour Party member, the only ones to come through with any dignity in any of this are the Royton Conservatives, who've stayed true to the cause and have called it out again, after time after time after time. So it does not surprise me that I had to share with you in the lead up to Christmas how the leader of Oldham Council had complained against the main opposition, her main opposition, Councillor Lewis Quigg, claiming he was a racist, far right, etc., because he'd used the term samosas and mango chutney. Of course, what should worry you, me, and everyone else more is how she has been following Councillor Quigg and going into public establishments demanding to see CCTV footage of who he has been meeting in these venues. And whilst we cannot and we will not link this directly to Shah, Councillor Quigg has been followed home and Pakistani mobsters have parked outside his front door. So I'm surprised myself that when I look forward to this coming 12 months and the looming election in May, the local elections in May, that the most likely candidates who we can and we should back in the seats where Labour hold, in the main, are Conservatives. And I say this as someone who is not a Conservative. But if we want justice for our children, if we want to rid this town of corruption and the shadow of gangsters running it, if we want to hold a police force to account who are neck deep in the cover-up themselves and criminality, if we want all of this, then we first and foremost have to support the right people before the parties. The person has got to be right first and foremost. So that's what we're up to. Myself, my capacities is more limited than ever, and that's despite all of your support for all of these years. So I'm having to review how I operate. You'll all have seen by now my post informing all of you that I will be using Facebook less and less and less and less. Some of you in the Telegram group yesterday, I put up as a joke a screen grab of the Royton Independent Jeanette Rowe, another one of those who took full advantage of the work I did. And then once her friend Maggie Hurley was elected, quickly ran away, mistakenly liking one of my posts. She just joins a long list of others, doesn't she? So my work will go via the Red Wall and the Rabble newsletter. It's a free newsletter, but people have to sign up to it. I'm sure they can forward it on to each other if they want afterwards. That's, if they still want to access my work and pretend they don't, but it's going to go behind Red Wall and the Rabble. The YouTube videos, the links will only be shared via Red Wall and the Rabble again to the subscribers, the paying members there. And those of you who subscribe to me on YouTube, you can continue to do so, but all that will allow you to do is comment on the transmissions. So I suggest if you haven't got a subscription, you subscribe to the ghost site, Red Wall and the Rabble. All of my YouTube income, as demonstrated over the last year, goes towards funding social gatherings for those of you who can attend. So I make no money from the YouTube income, but what the YouTube income does for me is protect me from fake accounts posting malicious comments, which then result in the council or others trying to sue me. So everything I do moving forward goes behind a paywall, essentially, or a membership tier. It's not something I want to do, it's not something I wanted to do, but that's where I find myself. In terms of content, we'll have the Sunday night transmissions, shorter, but a Sunday night transmission, probably 45 minutes to an hour and a half at most. So if people are complaining they're not as long as they used to be. That's what they'll be, 45 minutes to an hour, hour and a half at most. And then a Tuesday night or a Wednesday night live Q&A session. We'll take some of the stories of the week and I'll host a question and answer session, again for 30 minutes to 45 minutes. In addition to that, there'll be a weekly newsletter, and you've seen, those of you subscribe to Red Wall and Rebel, again shared for free. There's a bit of effort gone into that where it links the news stories that are emerging with some of the underlying themes behind it. I'm working on it, I'm building it up, and I'm hoping you'll find it of value as I join the threads together. So people say to me, Raja, does that mean you won't be campaigning in the May election? And excuse me if my voice is husky. I am full of a cold. No. Who do we campaign for? Who do you want me to campaign for? Who do you want me to risk my life for? Who do you want me to risk my freedom for? We took it this far. They would have lost, Labour Party would have lost control of the council had it not been for the Failsworth Independent Party. It's a matter of fact. If Brian Hoban and Mark Wilkinson had not fallen out, and then if Brian Hoban could not honour the agreement that they made between themselves, Labour would not have gotten in Failsworth. The majority would have been down to 30. Council would have been split evenly, and we would have forced the council instructing its chief executive to write to the Home Secretary demanding that a public inquiry takes place in Oldham regarding the cover-up of the grooming and gang rape of his town children. And that this public inquiry look at the actions of politicians at the time, senior council officials, police officers and members of the press. And had the government refused to do that, we would have then got a Telford-style inquiry approved, which the council had the right to approve themselves. Will we bring in a judge? We bring in the same judge. Unfortunately, we are unable to do that because of childish bickering, and I am too old to tolerate such behaviour. Especially from those who know better. And over the course of this year, we've seen that the other independents we did elect, well, I think their egos and the size of their heads are much bigger than the contents of what's inside. Mark Ince, Maggie Hurley, Sandra Ball, all completely inept in the council chamber. And it's easy for me to say John Hughes and the big team. No one elected John Hughes or his big team. They elected these councillors, and these councillors made promises, and these promises they betrayed us all on. So I look at Shah, and I look at the one Lib Dem councillor who has demonstrated courage in a way I never thought possible of any of the Lib Dems. That's Hazel Gloucester. She's up for re-election. There's no way I'm in any way campaigning against her. And I hope she slam dunks whoever it is that Mark Ince puts up. I look at Royton North. Lewis Quigg is up. If anything, if I operate anywhere, it will be independently to try and discredit the Labour Party candidate there to make sure people vote for Lewis. I look at St James. Amoy we supported last year. Extensively supported her last year. She's made a decision to go and stand with the independent group, hasn't spoken to me. So she's made an informed choice. She's an intelligent woman. I have no issue with her. Choices have consequences. It's not an area I'm going to get involved in. In Royton South, the Royton Independents, from what I can tell, are putting up John Hughes' daughter. How she's been selected, I have no idea. I know many of you have tried to join this party. This party doesn't exist. It'll be a matter for the Electoral Commission. If they continue to annoy me, I will escalate this in the way I escalate things. My instincts are, whilst Steve Bashforth is up for re-election, whoever it is the Royton Independents put forward won't get elected, because the Conservatives will have to put up a candidate in Royton South for two reasons. One, it's election year, and head office will tell them what they've got to do, as in general election year. And the second reason is, in the council chamber, the Royton Independents, along with Mark Ince, the independent group as they call themselves, have voted against Conservative Party amendments and amendments in the main that they should have been supporting, because it aligns with what they promised and pledged in their own election leaflets prior to getting elected. We've seen Mark Ince sit on the planning committee and I think second a motion, not just vote for it, actually be part of the team that took the motion forward to build on the Green Belt. So no, I think in Royton South, the vote will be split, I think, but the Conservatives will have to put their own candidates up. And for the third reason is to cut this cancer out, because it is a cancer. And how many of you who voted for these people, who supported these people, will go and vote for them again after everything you've seen? Ask yourself that. How many of you will? So again, I look at this and I think, okay, it's time for the big boys to take over. It's time for those who know what they're doing to come forward. And that's Lewis Quigg and his team. It's Dave Arnott and his team. It's Christine and his team and her team. In St James, I hear Mr. McManus is standing, former councillor in Saddleworth. Straight away, a keen supporter of a public inquiry, and I wish him well. Particularly, excuse me, I'll just put you on mute whilst I blow. Particularly as he's standing against Josh Charters, who's just basically an Arood Shah stooge. In Compton, I'm sure the Lib Dems will take care of business like they usually do. So where does that leave these so-called independents? Where else are they standing? Have they made any moves? Have the big team look to support the people of Oldham? All the towns across Oldham Borough? Have they gone to Chadderton? No, they haven't. Have they gone up to Saddleworth? No, they haven't. Nothing in Lees, nothing in Waterhead. How about the people of Hollingwood? Medlock? Werneth? No. Absolutely nothing. And we will be doing nothing there. So I'm clear, I won't be doing anything there. I look at Hollingwood. And Councillor Cameron Guffaw and his team of Conservatives won by contesting the all-outs in a very strategic way. They convinced the white Conservatives, 200 to 300 of them, to vote for them. And then they got the Pakistani postal votes from the redrawn boundaries and took out all 3 Labour Party councillors. Well done to them. It's a well-fought election. One of them's now up. And I'm not sure if the 300... I'm not sure if Councillor Cameron Guffaw and his team have done enough for the 300 white Conservatives that voted for them to continue to vote for them, whether they stand as a Conservative, because all 3 of them are currently suspended. I think it's Irfan's up. So even if Irfan is allowed back in, will he be able to secure the white Conservative vote as they did last time? Remember, I encouraged them, people in Hollingwood, to support these people. If the Conservatives, to give them a chance. I'm not sure they'll get the same support. I don't know. I look at Medlock. Labour will win unless a Muslim candidate, an anti-war sort of Muslim candidate, comes forward. Werneth, Labour will win. St Mary's, Labour will win. There's no independent opposition there, and the big team have done nothing to nurture an independent opposition there. So we end up in Failsworth, where in many ways this began. And I say this with sadness, not satisfaction in any way whatsoever. I say this with sadness. I think what's clearly going to happen, this is my analysis based on my experience. When we got Mark Wilkinson over the line, he got a record number of votes to take out Sean Fielding. And he's been a decent councillor for Failsworth. He has. He then lost last year in the all-outs. And anything can happen in the all-outs. Accepted. But he lost because the Failsworth Independent Party put up a candidate there. Now Mark Wilkinson and his team will be standing in May. Mark will be standing in Failsworth West. And from what I can tell, they'll also be putting up a candidate in Failsworth East. Likewise, Lucia Ray, who only saved her seat by 15 or 16 votes from the Failsworth Independent Party in Failsworth East, is up for re-election. And her party leader, Brian Hoban, will be putting a candidate up in Failsworth West. What do you think is going to happen? I personally believe that all that will happen is that they will, between them, they will fight for the independent vote in both of those wards. So the 900 or 1,000 independent votes between them, they'll fight between them. Now, maybe one will get 700 and the other one get 300 in one and vice versa in the other. But I'll tell you something, 700 votes won't win in either ward. And the vote will be split. Labour have a base vote in both wards. We now know this. We see what the lowest base is. They have a base vote in both wards. It's about 900. This is what I think will happen. We've got it down to 32, and we are hoping we could get it down to 30, 29, 28. And my motive is simple. It doesn't matter how much these people hate me, use me, exploited me, but none of that makes any difference. If we could take the council out of the hands of the Labour Party, then all of the opposition party politicians would vote in support of a public inquiry. I think that's clear. It's not going to go that way. I think Labour will take Hollingwood. I think Labour will take both Failsworth seats. They'll be up to 35 seats. Now the question is, where else in the town can you take 5 seats from them? You're not going to take it in Royton South, because the Conservatives will have to come back and the Independents will soon find out how much of a big team they really are. And Stephen Bashforth, Councillor Bashforth, will come through the middle because his base vote is sufficiently high enough. As in base vote, no matter what, those people will go and vote for Labour. Shaw and Crompton is relevant because it's a Lib Dem councillors. Where can you take 5 seats? And also hold on to the Conservative Lewis Quigg. I think in Saddleworth, Max Woodvine will lose his seat, but he'll lose it to a Lib Dem. So I'm not really bothered there. I think Max Woodvine isn't a very good councillor. So based on that, what is it that we do as a group? Because the solution we've been pushing for the last 4 years has been political representation will get us where we need to be. And now it looks like, because we've been betrayed by a bunch of charlatans and egomaniacs, we're not going to get a political outcome in the way we wanted. I think it's important I tell you this now, because this does not mean we're defeated. It means we need to focus our energies elsewhere. "35 seats. Okay. They'll lose 1 seat in Alexander. There's an independent standing, a pro-Palestinian independent standing. I don't care. It's a seat of Labour. I've said to you all along from the beginning, first base, remove Labour. First base, remove Labour. I've said that to you all along. I'm not going to change now. One of the Hussein brothers from the Cash and Carry, they're actually decent lads. I know them, they're decent lads. So that gets Labour down to 34. Where are we going to take the other 4? Well, I'll tell you. It's something you need to suck up and see if you can deal with it. The other 4 are only going to come by voting Conservative in target wards. Voting for Oldham Conservatives, people like Lewis, people like Dave, people like Christine, indeed people like Beth Sharp. They've got a template. They put up candidates with real life experiences who have a loyalty and allegiance to the areas they represent. They've got a good candidate in St. James who can win. They've got candidates in all three of the Chadderton wards. I think they can win in one, if not two of them. And they've got candidates, excuse me, in Coldest, because I'm not sure. But the question is, if it's not Montaz in Coldest, who is it? Who else can win? So what do we do? Yes, the Conservative Party don't need me to promote them. Excuse me. What do we do? Is a question I haven't got a complete answer for. I think we continue to raise awareness. I continue to hold the council directly to account through freedom of information requests, through public questions, and so on. There's a petition we can put together. Things we can do. And we move forward towards the general election and raise as much awareness as possible that should I get over the line, I'm not like any of these other independents. I think by now you can see I'm a man who's true to my word despite the risks. We get me over the line, then the Maggie Hurleys, the Markinses, the Brian Hobins, they all become irrelevant. And we can force that public inquiry. And we can force government intervention in this. Well, if it's not a corrupt council, what is it? So that will be my focus for the next 5 months up to May, and then the next 6 months up to the general election. Our numbers will be smaller. Our reach will be far less than it has been. But I'm not a man to be a pawn in someone else's game. So I wish the big team luck. I wish the Fails of Independence luck. I wish Mark Wilkinson luck. I wish Amoy luck. I wish them all luck. And should any potential candidate or councillor want my help, then my terms are very, very simple. I don't need a photograph next to you eating a curry like Brian Hobin did with Arud Shah. I'm not interested. I want a pledge. Demanding three things. 1, a public inquiry into the confirmed cover-up of the grooming and gang rape of our town's children. 2, government intervention in the running of Oldham Council, particularly as this is a council in crisis where millions of pounds have disappeared, been used, where the finance lead, his numbers of interest payments don't add up with the numbers of interest payments in their own documents. We want the government to come in and take over the running of Oldham Council. And the third one is very clear to me. We began to talk about this when we were supporting independence before, and they all nodded their heads. But we need, and of course, once they got in, they just ignored us because it's naive. It's the naivety. Taking photographs of fly tipping is not going to make any difference in any sustainable way to the people who actually live in this town. We need a redistribution of wealth in this town. That means a redistribution and a reallocation of council resources. Where people in Saddleworth, where people in Royton, where people in Shaw, where people in Chadderton get their fair share. Where people in Coldust get their fair share, where people in Werneth get their fair share. This is not what is currently taking place. We need the establishment of townships with genuine delegated powers and multi-million-pound budgets, so people can see change in the areas and the communities that they call home. As it stands, the millions that are being spent to other people's agendas to prioritise the careers of politicians and policy officers who are climbing that ladder. You, the people of this town, on the list of those who matter, are at the bottom. You don't believe me? Go and have a look at that stupid bus lane they've built going up the hill to the civic centre, to the town square. I challenge Arood Shah, Josh Charters, Elaine Taylor, any of them, Howard Sykes, Pam Burns, any of those councillors to get a bicycle at the top of Westwood and ride up that hill to the civic centre. £2.9 million. They're taking you for fools, and those we've elected lack the courage or the conviction to speak out on our behalf. I'll see you all soon. But please, if you want to get a link to these transmissions, the video links for the Sunday night transmissions and the Wednesday Q&A, you will have to subscribe to the Ghost site, Redwall and Rabble on the Ghost site. It's £3 a month. That's how I earn my living. My income there is £814 a month. So that's how much I'm currently on. I'm no longer in a position where I can put out my content for free. So the video content will go behind the paywall. There won't be any more videos free at all moving forward. And if you are a politician that wants my help, those are my terms. Your commitment to a public inquiry, your commitment to calling the government to take over the running of this town, and finally, your commitment to redraw the framework of how this council, this town allocates its resources. So instead of those who control the vote being prioritised, every citizen who lives in this town is likewise prioritised. I'm not asking for money. I'm not asking for a position of any form whatsoever. I'm asking that you put the place we call home first. Happy New Year. See you all soon.
Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them. On the 20th of November 2003, James Ignatius O'Rourke McMahon was elected councillor for the Failsworth East Ward of Oldham. Deeply ambitious, he ruthlessly rose to power, and by 2011 he was already leader of the council. In 2015, exploiting a Labour Party loophole, he became MP for Oldham West and Royton. If only the people of the town knew then what they now know. Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them.